All right, so I wanted to come on here and do another set of notes just about the unit circle and about how we find the trig values from there. This is kind of the biggest concept of Unit 18 or Mod 18, and the one that we really want to make sure that you understand before moving on to pre-calculus or whatever course you're doing next. So at this point you should have a unit circle that's completely filled out, and unit circle, again, if you look at just the first quadrant, 30, 45, 60 degrees up to 90 degrees, and then it follows that 30 degrees past there, 45, 60 past there, and then your next one. It follows that pattern for each quadrant where you have a 30, 45, and a 60 in each quadrant. And then we have our coordinates that we came up with by using those special right triangles. Okay, so you can go back and look at those previous videos if you still don't understand that. Keeping in mind this is still a y-axis and an x-axis, and due to that we have our little, was it our little, is it an acronym? All students used to be take calculus, but now it's all students talk crap. However you want to remember it, it's just a way to remember things. And the A means that all of our functions, sine, cosine, tangent, we're not talking about secant, cosecant, cotangent, you'll talk about that next year, all of them are positive in the first quadrant. In the second quadrant, sine is the only thing that is positive. In the third quadrant, tangent is the only thing that's positive. And in the fourth quadrant, cosine is the only thing that's positive. So if I look at some problems, if I'm looking for the sine of 200 degrees, I'm going to look at my unit circle here, and I need to find 200 degrees. Well, 200 degrees is in the third quadrant. In the third quadrant, is sine positive? Well, the answer is yes, because tangent's the only thing that's negative. So my answer is going to be positive. And the sine value of 210 degrees, remember sine is the y value, so at 210 degrees, the y value is -1/2. Did I say it was going to be positive? Here I go, mixing everything up. Whoop. -1/2, because tangent is the only thing that's positive, therefore sine will be negative. Hope I didn't totally confuse you. Let's see if I can clear it up here. Cosine of 0 degrees. Remember, cosine is an x value. Well, at 0 degrees, the x value is 1. Okay, now when we're talking about an angle such as 0 degrees, 90 degrees, 180, or 270, we call those quadrantal angles because they are ones that lie directly on the x or y axis. We don't worry about that all students take calculus rule because we just go by what is the actual coordinates. Is it 1, 0, 0, 1, -1, 0, 0, -1, because they don't technically fall inside a quadrant. Okay, cosine of -7 pi over 6. So let me think about this for a minute. If I were to follow my radians, where is +7 pi over 6? Right here. So it's 30 degrees, it's 210 degrees, so -210 degrees would be going this way and ending up right here. So this is the terminal side for the cosine of -7 pi over 6, which means these are the coordinates I'm looking at to identify the cosine. Now remember, the cosine is your x value. Sine is the only thing that's positive, so my cosine is going to be negative, and it happens to be -√3 over 2. That's my cosine there. Okay. Next one, tangent of 270. Remember, tangent is y over x. 270 degrees happens to be one of those quadrantal angles. So if I look at the coordinates there, the y value is -1, the x value is 0, and anything over 0 is undefined. Okay. All right, this time I have a picture. It looks like they're going -pi over 4. Well, -pi over 4, if I need to, I can change that to degrees. By changing that to degrees, I know that's 45 degrees. So -pi over 4 ends up being 315 degrees, or 7 pi over 4. If I'm looking for the cosine value there, I'm looking for the x value there. So in the fourth quadrant, cosine is the only thing that happens to be positive. and it's positive root 2 over 2. Okay, so you really want your unit circle out sitting next to you as you're doing this. Tangent, again, tangent is y over x, and we're looking at negative 7 pi over 6. So we're looking in the second quadrant. Find the one that has the over 6 part. That's the one it's going to be coterminal with. That's the one it's going to match up with. Okay, again, I think that's the same angle I looked at here. I can also look at the 7 pi over 6 and notice that's 30 beyond the 180. So if I go this way and go 30 past there, that's what it is. You can also just match it up by that denominator in this case. So my y value is 1/2. My x value is negative root 3 over 2. So I have positive over a negative, which means I'm going to have a negative, which is correct because sine is the only thing that is positive in that quadrant. So 1/2 divided by negative root 3 over 2, and I have to do a little bit of work here. We never actually divide fractions, we change it to multiplication. It doesn't really matter where I put the negative sign there as long as I don't lose it. And I end up with 1 over negative radical 3, or negative radical 3. I'm sorry, negative radical 3, negative 1 over radical 3. So I'm going to multiply by rad 3 over rad 3. Okay, if you happen to multiply by negative rad 3 over negative radical 3, guess what happens? This is going to cancel each other out, but you're still going to have a negative up here. So overall, we still end up with a negative. So 1 times rad 3 is rad 3. Negative rad 3 times rad 3 is negative 3. So you can call it rad 3 over negative 3. You can call it negative rad 3 over 3. You can put the negative with the numerator, the denominator, or either. It doesn't matter. But that's our value there. Okay. Next one, cosine of theta. Well, we have a quadrantal angle. We have our 90-degree angle. Cosine is the x value. The x value there is 0. And then finally, tangent again. That's y over x. That's the only one that typically gives you some work to do. Of 30 degrees. Well, that's right here. 1/2 over root 3 over 2. That's your y value over your x value. If you notice, it's exactly the same as the one I did up there. So it's going to be the exact same answer, only positive, because in that first quadrant, everything is positive. Okay, so I just wanted to show you again how quick these should be, how important it is that you have the unit circle out next to you as you're doing it. If you're able to print it out, great. If not, do a hand-drawn one, but don't lose it because you're going to want to reuse it as a resource every time you're doing these. Okay? Happy studying!